Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of The End of the Night. I am David Lee Madison, of course, your bizarre host. And next to me is my beloved co-host, producer, and just friend, Mr. Joe Ridgely. How are you, Joe?
I am excellent. How are you tonight, David?
I am beyond excellent. I am super excited that... hi, Gwendolyn. The great rock star who was on last week. Gwendolyn, you rock. Thank you for doing our show.
She was awesome.
She was awesome. Mr. Smithson, I hope you're doing well. I hope that your hand is healing and that you'll be able to give me the finger without any pain soon. Hi,
Mr.
Terry.
Drove Cav.
Hi, Susie. I hope you're well. You know, Joe, I grew up a product of the 70s, and to have such an iconic living legend on our show tonight, I mean, we're having none other than Don Most, Ralph Mouth from Happy Days, and he was on Chips, and he was on Emergency, and he had a hit single. I mean, he is such an iconic legend who's done so many wonderful, wonderful things. Well, Joe, will you be in the role of Potsy tonight?
If need be. I don't think I have the voice for it, though.
No.
Potsy can sing. I can't sing.
And if you know what, I always thought that Potsy actually got the most beautiful women on the show. I think Potsy actually got prettier girls than the Fonz did.
Yeah?
It sucks because I put my drink in the freezer like 20 minutes before the show started to get it cold. And it's literally like, so if you hear a weird sucking noise.
All right. Well,
and it's not coming from Scott.
Let me give you a word of advice. Alcohol doesn't freeze.
Oh, there you go. Maybe, it would be a great time to start drinking, actually. So, how you been, Mr. Ridgely?
I've been very excited for this week's show. I mean, just amazing. Growing up, I was born in '76, so I was a little kid around the Happy Days generation. Happy Days, Joni Loves Chachi, but also, Mork and Mindy from the spinoff, and Laverne and Shirley.
All just absolutely amazing. Probably some of the best television of our time. Is Mr. Schiaffo available? Uncle Scott.
Scott, give me a thumbs up, buddy. Boom, there is Mr. Schiaffo.
Ladies and gentlemen, Uncle Scott. How are you, Uncle Scott?
I'm good. How you fellas doing?
We're doing fine.
Excellent.
So tell us a little bit about what our guest tonight, his legacy, and what it means to you, especially like his role in Happy Days and some of the great stuff he's done.
Well, it's always fascinating to me, an actor who locks into a role in something that's very successful. I think Happy Days might be one of the first. I don't know if it's ran longer than that. Was like 12 or 13 seasons, wasn't it? I mean, it was at the time one of the longest running. Hey guys, one of the longest running sitcoms.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all of its incarnations, I think it was even longer than that. With Joni Loves Chachi and there was a Happy Days that had Ted McKinley. Was it a different? Did they call it a different show at that point?
I think it was still Happy Days.
It was still Happy Days. Yeah,
I think so. And then they had the animated series.
Oh right, yeah. Wow, it's just like.
And then, of course, the pop culture. Jumping the shark came from
yes.
So it's like really deep in the zeitgeist of pop culture, and I'm really curious to hear Don talk a little bit about post Happy Days, because you talk about, I know Henry Winkler speaks a lot about how difficult it was to break from that and be seen as anything as other than the Fonz.
It's strange that you mentioned jump the shark. I totally forgot about that. And that's a term that is used constantly.
Right. It came from the show. Yeah. I mean, now it's like it refers to almost anything where the writing is either insanely unbelievable or not pragmatic, like it's squeezing the last drop out of whatever series they're using that term about. We jumped the shark, but yeah, remember when Fonzie jumped the shark?
Yeah, I remember, like yesterday, he literally had his leather jacket on, which I thought was the coolest.
Yes, and a floaty thing around it.
Yeah.
That was like Fonz meets Knievel.
Oh, that's good stuff.
It was such a wonderful show in that it transcended, like, time, and it was kind of like universal truth stories that everybody could relate to. It was just really just a wonderful, wonderful, funny show. And tonight, joining us right here tonight is one of the most iconic characters of the show's history. Donnie Most will be with us in just a few minutes. Pinky Tuscadero. Yeah.
Leather Tuscadero.
I remember, I mean, it was funny because for me, the character, the Fonz, almost was like the first superhero we could identify. There was something superhuman about the Fonz. I remember one time there was like a gang that was holding Richie hostage so he couldn't play basketball. I don't know if you guys remember this particular episode because it was like from the rival high school, and they were holding him hostage in Arnold's, so that he couldn't get to the game because he was the best player for that high school, and the Fonz comes out of nowhere, and there's like 8 toughs holding Richie hostage, literally. And the Fonz comes in and he throws Richie the basketball and tells him to leave. And the guys go, "There's eight of us and 1 of you." And the Fonz is like, "That's true. Just give me a second to warm up." And he walks over to the jukebox, and on the left side is the women's room door, and the right side is the men's room door. And he punches the men's room door, and it flies off its hinges. And he punches the women's room door, and it flies off his hinges. And he turns around, and the guys just run the hell out of Arnold's. And it's just stuff like that was like, wow, it was just so cool.
It really was. It was. Some people were not the biggest fans of the era that it depicted, but you still enjoyed the show. And I was one of those people. I was always in a 60s and 70s mentality for my pop culture, but it made me appreciate the time that they were depicting.
No, absolutely. And Ralph was literally, the character was literally like the comic glue that kind of held everything together. He was the guy who would always have the funny, the line that sold the joke, and he was very, very, very good about it. Is Mr. Most in the green room? No. Okay.
He just... Mr. Most, are you ready for us, sir? I'm assuming he's saying, yeah, give me a thumbs up. There you all right, okay. Here come... Go ahead.
All right. Without further ado, this show has been blessed to have many, many iconic people on it. But tonight, we are using the word lightly if we don't call Mr. Most an unbelievable icon of cinema and television. One of the stars of everybody's favorite show, Happy Days. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Don Most.
Hello there. Hey, David.
Hey, Don. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
We are awesome. We are beyond thrilled to have you on tonight. And
thank you.
And coming from probably everybody who's in the generations that Joe and Scott and I grew up in, we want to wholeheartedly thank you for a lifetime of wonderful memories and a lifetime of unbelievable entertainment, humor. You taught us how to be funny. You taught us how to be humble. You just everything that you did on that show and on a lot of shows you've done. You're just a great guy, and so thank you very much. I've interviewed Jimmy Carter. I've interviewed some very, very, very important and influential people, and I'm tongue twisted with you, so you have to forgive me for a moment. So it's just
Well,
awesome for you to be joining us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
And,
no need to be tongue-tied.
Okay.
Just let it go. Just
There
let
you
it
go. Just so you know, the gentleman to the I guess it would be my right is Mr. Joe Ridgely, our producer,
Hey,
and
Joe.
Scott Schiaffo, the star of Clerks and Wits End and the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. He has an iconic resume himself. He's going to be joining us tonight. He's a
right,
a
Scott.
co-host of our show, and we're all just so honored to have you on. With that being said, tell us a little bit about how Don Most found his passion to be an entertainer. Did you find it in high school? Did you find it in college? Where did you say, hey, this is something I want to do with life?
The initial catalyst, if you will, the sort of lightning bolt, was when I was 9 years old, and I saw a movie called The Jolson Story, which was a biopic about the great Al Jolson, who was considered the greatest entertainer in the world during his eras, during late the teens, 20s, and 30s. And then he went on to star in the first talking movie. The first movie that had sound was The Jazz Singer, starring Al Jolson. But what I saw was a biopic about him called The Jolson Story, which was made in 47 or something like that. And I was 9 years old, and I saw the movie on television one night, and it just had a very profound impact on me. Seeing Jolson, was an amazing performer, and there was an actor playing him, but it was Jolson's vocals during the songs, and Larry Parks did a great job of playing him, and I don't know, it was like all of a sudden, a whole new world opened up for me, and I went out and bought all of his albums, and then I started listening to a lot of the great, the great standards from the 30s and 40s and 50s, the jazz, and especially in a jazz band. And I listening to it on radio growing up in New York. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I'd listen to these radio stations at night, and I got a real education about that music. And I love jazz. So that was my initial love, to enter, pursue a career or whatever, a life's mission, doing that kind of music. And it was years before I switched gears where I started focusing on acting. But it was sort of a natural pathway, because I loved, I always loved watching TV shows as a kid growing up, and then it was a great renaissance of film in the 60s, especially in the late 60s, early 70s. So I started, seeing all these incredible movies with wonderful performances, and then I started, refocusing my energy in the acting, knowing that I'd get back to the music sometime down the road. And that's exactly what's happened.
Now, you say, were you born in Brooklyn?
Yes.
Okay. Oddly enough, I was born in Brooklyn, too, at Wyckoff Heights Hospital.
Oh, what section of Brooklyn is that?
It's right where Brooklyn and Ridgewood meet. What would that area be?
Bridgewood.
Ridgewood. Ridgewood was the Queens side of the Queens-Brooklyn border. Ridgewood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess Bushwick, I guess, would be?
Maybe.
Yeah.
That part of Brooklyn I wasn't that familiar with. But I was in Flatbush.
Okay.
I grew up in Flatbush.
Now, I know that growing up you had a little bit of a passion for sports and baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you a Brooklyn Dodger fan? Were you a New York Yankee fan? I know you're not old enough to be a Brooklyn Dodger fan. I meant no disrespect in that. Is that?
No. Well, I could have been. But I started following baseball. Really started following it in 59, 60, and the Dodgers left in 57, 58. Mm-hmm. So they were gone. So the Yankees and the New York Giants left the same year. So New York went from having 3 baseball teams to having 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Yankees. And that's when I started following baseball. So they were my idols. I was a Mickey Mantle freak. I had Mickey. My room looked like it had Mickey Mantle wallpaper. I mean, every inch of the room was covered with a picture of the Mick. And so, yeah, I was totally into the Yankees, and Mantle, Maris, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra, that whole. I mean, wanted to be a baseball player up until I was around, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, realizing that ain't going to happen, That ain't going to happen.
It must be a thing about growing up. I was on Underdunk Avenue, and then we moved to Middle Village, Queens. And in the 70s, when I was growing up, I was a Met fan, of course, because I was in Queens. And
Yeah.
I idolized a center fielder named Lee Mazzilli.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember.
It's funny.
I met Lee once. He was a real nice guy.
I actually did a play off Broadway called Tony and Tina's Wedding that Lee Mazzilli starred in.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
he actually became an actor after he played baseball.
So were you doing the play with him?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. And
Very
he played the lead role in Tony, and it was funny because I went up to him because it was the play was a mock wedding, and then the performance was really just dealing with people at the reception, and.
Right.
I walked up to him every night and said, you really look just like that baseball player who turned to be an actor. And everybody would be like, you're going to say Lee Mazzilli, aren't you? And I'd be, no, you look just like Tony Danza. So,
Good one.
so you become an actor, and I guess you make your way out to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. So, what happened? So I was doing the singing thing, and I was 15 years old. Once up singing in a nightclub review up in the Catskill Mountains for the entire summer, all the nightclubs and the hotels, when I was 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
But then, right after that summer, I switched gears and I, joined a really good workshop in New York, a dramatic study program, and with a lot of other great young actors. And that's when I started really pursuing that. And through high school and college, I was, going on auditions and did a little TV in New York, and then a lot of commercials because that was the big thing in New York. It was they weren't shooting television there except for soap operas. There was hardly any movies being shot there, once in a while, but it was mainly Broadway, off Broadway, and commercials and soap operas. So I was doing I wound up getting a lot of commercials and a little bit of TV. And then after my for the summer after my junior year in college. So I just finished my junior year at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I decided to go out to California for the summer to, I made contacts in New York, so I was able to get some agent in LA, and I said, let's see what happens. And I started getting some auditions just during the summer that I was there, and I landed a few guest starring roles, and then wound up staying and not going back for my senior year because I took 6 months off to see, hey, I got some momentum, let's keep it going. And so then I stayed in LA, didn't go back to Pennsylvania, and then landed a few more roles, and then nothing happened. And I thought, oh, there was a big mistake. And then I get a call to meet with the exec producers for a new show about the 50s called Happy Days. So I led you up to there.
Well, let's just take a step back and talk about some of those supporting roles that you started before you landed Happy Days. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to appear on the cult classic hit show Emergency.
Yeah. So that was my second job. The first one was a show called Room 222. I think it was an ABC show. And it was took all the characters around a classroom in a high school. So I got a guest starring role in that. And, that was just sort of a light comedy kind of a show. And but I was really, like I said, my sights were set more on my acting heroes back then were Jack Nicholson when he was just starting doing movies like Five Easy Pieces and Easy Rider. And of course, Dustin Hoffman was still a big Paul Newman fan back then. A lot of, all those great actors. And, I wanted to be this serious dramatic actor. So then the next part I got was Emergency, where at least, it was a guy who got paralyzed in a car accident. So all my scenes, I was in a hospital bed, seemingly paralyzed. So and then I did another one called Police Story, where I played the psychopathic mad bomber. And that was an intense couple of scenes that I had to do. So yeah, that was what I had. Those were the shows that I landed before Happy Days.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't you do an episode of MASH?
People think that I did. I keep seeing that, but there must have been a guy with red hair at the time. So they people seem to push together in this one pile redheads, like they all look alike or something. I don't know, but it wasn't me in MASH.
No, okay. My apologies. It's on your IMDb.
I know. I'm going to have to
Really?
correct that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll have to figure out how to correct that.
Well, it's funny that he says that about the redheads because if you would please go ahead and read that, David.
I always liked Ralph Mouth because we shared curly red hair. Red hair wasn't cool back then.
Right? Wasn't so cool. For a guy, it was like a little tough, right? Am I right, Scott?
Well, you made it cool.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Many years later, which not too long ago, I did a recurring role on the show Glee. Mm-hmm. And in the third one I did, the director was Eric Stoltz.
Oh.
And
Another redhead.
Yeah, and he came up to me at some point, when we were on a break in the middle of shooting, and he said, "I have to tell you something. You he said, being a redhead, it was tough. It was really tough for me as a guy." And he said, "But then when you came on, and all of a sudden it kind of made it okay to be a redhead." And he was like thanking me for because he was going through all that. So that's a great feeling to know that I helped out a fellow ginger in that regard,
Well, leading up to Happy Days, tell us a little bit about how you landed the coveted role that you got in Happy Days as Ralph Mouth.
Well, so I the first thing, I had a meeting with two of the exec producers, Tom Miller and Ed Milkus, and they just wanted to talk to me and meet me, and because they'd seen a few things, a little footage maybe of what I had done, and then the next thing they called me back, and I had to do a scene. I was reading for the role of Potsy, and I had to do a scene, and in this room, big conference room at Paramount Studios, where Gary Marshall, the creator and the exec producer of our show, he was there with about at least 10, 12 other people, and I, had to audition with one of the scenes, me as Potsy and the other guy playing Richie, another actor auditioning. And then I get, after that, another call saying, okay, now they want to screen test you. So that was a crazy day. And Ron Howard and Anson Williams were screen testing, even though they had done those roles in a pilot of Happy Days almost 2 years earlier, and it didn't sell. So it's a crazy story. But now ABC, after Graffiti hit, they go, oh, didn't we have a show about the 50s? So they brought it back, and they asked Gary, and he said, but you got to screen test people, because Ron and Anson's 2 years later, they might be too old to play those characters. Anyway, so they made Ron and Anson screen test again, with about 10 other people auditioning for Richie, 10 other people, myself included, auditioning for Potsy. And it was a long day. It was a torturous day. And I thought, forget it. No chance in hell I'm going to get this. And then my agent called me on a Friday, and said, you didn't get the role of Potsy because they cast Anson again and Ron. But he said, but they loved your screen test so much, they want to put you in the show and come up with a character to make you a regular in the show. And there was a small part in the pilot, a guy named Ralph Mouth, who was into cars. And they said, we'll give him that part, but know that it'll become, he'll be guaranteed so many episodes for the new season and he'll be a regular. So my agent told me this, and we turned it down.
Wow.
I turned it down. And I turned it down because I was up for a really great dramatic role in a TV movie written by a guy named Herman Raucher, who wrote a movie called The Summer of 42, which is a fabulous movie. And when I was that age, I was like, oh my God, he wrote The Summer of 42? And then it was being directed by a guy named Buzz Kulick, who directed the original Brian song, which was one of the best, highest rated TV movies ever, about Gail Sayers and Brian Piccolo. So James Caan played Brian Piccolo in it, actually. So I wanted to do this movie, and I auditioned for it, and my agent said, you have a great chance of getting this part. So I wanted to do that more than a sitcom. So that's why we turned it down. Now you ask, okay, so then what happened, right?
Right.
More craziness. My agent happened to play basketball every Saturday at Gary Marshall's house. So the next day, Gary pulls my agent aside during a break in the game and says, what's going on with your boy turning us down? And my agent said, Gary said he thinks this is going to go as a mid-season replacement. Got a great chance. And instead of 7 episodes out of 13, they'll guarantee you 10. And instead of $750 a show, which is what they were offering, I'll give you $1,000 a show. And my agent said, you might want to think about taking it, and because I might not have gotten the other role. That was still up in the air. So it was tough because I really wanted to do the other one. But we decided to go with Happy Days.
So you made the right choice.
And we're all glad you did.
Yeah.
I guess so. Who can question that? I can't even. I don't know. I don't even know how to comment on that. But yeah, I mean, the experience was incredible. As you mentioned, the legacy of the show, that's an incredible thing. So to be part of that and to be known for that, I was blessed and I'm incredibly grateful. But it's, it's like, it's a marathon, and that was part of the early sprint part of it. And then I heard you guys talking a little bit before you brought me on about how, Fonz had talked about being so locked into that role and how difficult it was to get away from it. Well, very much the same thing for me. So, there were some tough periods after that show, trying to, get the kind of roles in the project the quality projects that I wanted to be part of. It was very difficult.
With that being said, at what point during the life of Happy Days did it come to you that you are doing something that was going to transcend it just being a television show? Was it while it was still on that you realized you guys were doing something that was so special and important? Was it later on?
That's a great question. Early on, we had no idea. Well, in the first year, we were kind of like a minor hit. We were one camera show, no audience, shooting it like a movie. And we were a minor hit. But I felt the chemistry that we all had was something I'm 20 years old. I didn't have a lot to compare this kind of experience to. It's not like I'd been in a bunch of other shows, so I can compare it. But I knew that there was something really special about the people I was working with, and I was very, very excited about that. And I knew we were doing some good stuff in that first season, and we were like a minor hit. But then, for whatever reason, the second season, still good shows, but our ratings started going down. The rage at the time were 3-camera, live, not live, but in front of an audience. Shows like All in the Family and Maude. They were really starting to be the format for comedies. So our ratings started going down. We almost didn't go on the air. We almost didn't make it to the third season. But then our director, Jerry Paris and Gary Marshall, they decided we should switch to the 3-camera format in front of an audience. And they brought the character of Fonz more into a lead role with Ron. And then that next season is when we started to explode and just take off, and we became #1 show in the country. So, yeah, it's hard not to. On one hand, you realize, hey, we're the #1 show, so okay, this is a huge success. But on the other hand, you can't comprehend it because it's too much to comprehend. That how many millions of people are watching you. How do you grasp that? How do you wrap your head around that when you're in the studio, a soundstage, shooting, all day long, and you have no sense of that it's going out to so many people. So it took a while to get used to that and to understand the impact that it had. So in answer to your question, we started to get a sense of that, in our 3rd, 4th, 5th season when the show was becoming so huge, because there were only 3 networks then. So we had 50, 60 million people watching us every Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. A hit show now is 5, 6 million or something. We had like 50. We had like a quarter of the country watching us. So it's crazy. You're like in the Twilight Zone. So you get a sense that something big is happening. But the fact that it has this kind of longevity, I didn't really come to appreciate and enjoy it quite as much as I have been, I'd say, in the last 5, 10 years, where I'm starting to get a sense of what the show means to, like you talked about it, what it means to so many people and how it affected their lives, or how it gave them, people that were going through hard times, they tell me, and then they would love to watch the show like as an escape. I've so many of those stories, how it impacted people in that kind of way, people in the hospital and people going through stuff. It was very moving. So it was important for me to hear that. You go out and travel and you hear that from people, start to get a sense of the reality of that.
It's amazing. The show that you are a major part of is, there's a piece of it housed in the Smithsonian Institute. Think about the magnitude of that.
Fonzie's leather jacket.
Yeah. Your great line that you said, I don't know, countless times in the show, I still got it.
Right.
Is that something that you came up with, or is it something that was written for you?
Half and half. It was not written.
Okay.
It was not written.
Okay.
I came up with it in a way. I briefly mentioned our wonderful genius director, Jerry Paris. And Jerry and I, very close. He was close with all of us, but he was like my uncle as we got into doing the show. And Jerry, I started borrowing stuff from Jerry to incorporate into my character, because I wasn't a comedic kind of character. I wasn't the class clown. In high school, I was the shy guy that would be the straight man for all the funny guys. I was more like Richie. I was not Ralph, But to me, I took on, that was my role, and that's who I became. But I would take things from those kind of people. And Jerry was a guy who would crack us up all the time. He loved he loved hearing us laugh and scoring those jokes. And he used to say, after he would get a winning, get a great reaction from us being funny, he'd say, I still got it. That's what so one day, it hit me, and we were getting ready to shoot a show in front of an audience. And it hit me. There was a scene where Ralph is in Arnold's and he says some kind of joke. And I said, I don't know, I got in my head that I'm going to borrow Jerry's line. And I remember going up to Ron Howard and said, because I have to let him, I said, look, when we get to this part of the scene, be ready. I'm going to say something that's not in the script, but I want you to be ready for it. Because this was, with an audience and all that. And that's what I did. I just threw it in after I told the joke. And Jerry went crazy, and the cast went nuts, and the audience loved it, even though they didn't understand it. So that was the origin of I Still Got It. And what I love is that I hear people, using, this was back in 77 or something like that. But now and then I started hearing like 15 years ago or something like that, people going, I still got it. I still hearing, people on television, and I know that it somehow it trickled into the zeitgeist of our culture, which is really pretty cool.
That is.
Now, forgive me if I'm not remembering this properly, but Mork from Ork, played by the legendary Robin Williams, first appeared on Happy Days.
Yes, indeed.
Now, were you? I've seen every episode of Happy Days at least 4 times. In fact, this morning I watched one.
Oh, cool!
Just by accident. It's the one where Alan Arkin wants to beat up Richie.
Adam.
Alan's dad. Yeah.
Alan's son.
Yeah. Oh, great episode. I think you said something like you didn't want to ruin your drum hands or something. It was funny as hell.
Yeah, I remember the show.
Did you get to work with Robin on the episode of Happy Days that Mork was on?
A little bit, not too much. I was in, there was one scene at Arnold's that Robin was in, 1 or 2 scenes. So, there was a brief interaction, but we got to see, this brilliance come on to our soundstage. And everybody was like, oh my God, look at this guy. Who is this guy? Maybe he is from another planet. That's what it seemed like. He seemed like he was from another planet. It was pretty crazy. We were all, there was so much buzz going on, and it was so clear that this guy was, just had this unique, very particular comedic brilliance. And by Friday night, when we were shooting the show, there are all these ABC executives in the audience, and then we hear like 4 days later, he's got his own show, like
that quick. Wow, undeniable.
Yeah.
Jeff is asking, that was the same episode with Laverne and Shirley. I think Fonzie and Richie went on a date with Laverne and Shirley, and
right.
Mork came. Lance is saying, I had Dairy Queen Happy Days collector glasses, actual glass, missed those, had to order Dr. Pepper to get them. I hate Dr. Pepper.
Nice.
I never had those glasses.
Scott, do you have anything you want to ask Mr. Mose about his Happy Days tenure?
Oh gosh, well, you were sharing that season 3 was sort of like the season that kicked it off, and then it exploded. I'm sure your personal life changed greatly as far as being, recognized in supermarkets and
right
at a young age. When that happens overnight, that's got to be a bizarre adjustment. How was that for you?
It is a bizarre adjustment. I often tell people, you go to acting school, acting classes and all that. They don't train. There's no class for, dealing with if you're on a hit show and how your life will change. There's no You don't have training for that. There's no preparation. You're left to your own devices. Luckily, I wasn't 13 or 14 when that happened, because then it could be, it's so hard to deal with. You haven't established who you are. You haven't, gotten a sense of identity yet. I was 20, been through 3 years of college already, had a really great family support system. So I think that gave me a stronger, more stable base to come from. And not that it wasn't difficult, because, people go, well, what's the big deal? I mean, isn't it fun? And yeah, at the beginning, when you're going out and people are recognizing you, it's a major high. It's a cool ego boost, and it's great. But, it's not like, okay, it's for a certain period of time and you could have it turn on and off when you want.
Right, that's the thing. You can't turn it off.
Yeah,
and
then it becomes 24/7 your life, and then but that's just the privacy side of it. The other even more insidious, potentially more insidious side of it is you getting caught up in believing that you're whatever the adulation is telling you, and you can distort your sort of ego, and you can get lost in that very easily. It's very seductive, but it's false. It's not real. So that was the toughest part, I think. Trying to stay grounded and understand, keep a hold of what reality is. That was the biggest challenge.
So you're out in Hollywood, and did you have any family out there with you at that point at all, or no? Because you were from the East.
Yeah, no, I didn't. But I, I visited a lot. I would travel back to the East Coast a lot, and I had that support system. So it was still there, luckily.
David, if
Yes.
you would please, the beautiful actress Max has a question, or a statement actually.
Oh, happy days changed the way we all looked at ensemble cast. Thank you for paving the way.
Wow.
I have a weird question, and I think somebody asked it earlier. Whatever happened to Richie's older brother?
Yeah, Gavin O'Harley, he played Chuck in the first season. Mm-hmm. Really nice man. And the problem was, I think in the beginning they saw the show where it was the family, and there'd be Richie with, Potsy, Richie and Potsy, and Fonzie might be this sort of, peripheral character. Ralph, he was not even really in the the screen into the view yet. But I think it started to change, and they saw that they needed to do more stuff with Richie and his friends, and still have family, but Chuck they had established as this sort of, dumb basketball, the jock who would come dribbling into the living room and, and say something that you could tell wasn't full of a lot of thought or, too much going on. And then they realized they kind of in a hole. They had dug a hole, and the actor was not happy. So what I had heard, and this is what I had heard from the executive producer, that they mutually agreed. He wasn't happy. He wanted to have more to do, but that's not. But they'd already kind of established the character, so it was a mutual understanding that he would, that he would leave, and they said he went off to college. So that's how that happened.
Ken McKiernan asks, will you get behind the camera again?
Oh, great question. I hope so. I've directed 3 independent films now, and it's been a while since the last one. And I have a project right now that these producers are really enthusiastic about, and they think they're getting the financing, and so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they're going to get it, and then I co-wrote it, and I'll be directing it if it goes. So
awesome.
So thank you for that question.
Yeah. Well, we could sit and talk about something as iconic as Happy Days for hours and hours, but you have done so many other wonderful things that I would like to touch on. You went from Happy Days, and then you got a starring role in a motion picture called Studer School, and I remember seeing it back. I guess it was probably in the mid '80s.
Yeah, like
and
85, I think, something
Yep.
like that.
And it was wonderfully funny. It had kind of a police academy vibe
Yes.
to it to me.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got a starring role in a major motion picture, and tell us a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, I think that's a astute observation, because at the time it was a little bit not too long after Police Academy was out, and I know the director or writer was using, I think it was like that was the inspiration, but do it with, instead of a police academy, in stewardess school in that arena. I initially read the script, and I was trying. This was at a time when I was trying to really, separate myself from Happy Days, in that I didn't want to be so stuck in that I wouldn't have a career. I wanted to have, a lifelong career as an actor, and so I was really wanting to establish myself in more dramatic roles and different kinds of roles. So when they offered me Stewardess School, it was a very broad comedy, and I was like, this isn't what I think is going to be the thing for me to do right now. So I turned it down, and then the agent called me back and said, the director would love if you would just come in and talk to him. Would you be willing to do that? So I did, and then he and I, Ken Blancato, we hit it off so well. I really liked him, and I got a sense of his creativity, and I don't know. I felt more comfortable about taking on this part in that particular kind of genre film, and I have to tell you, it was a blast. I had a great time doing it, and it turned out it's very funny. It's a funny movie. It came together really well.
No, it absolutely was. Also, around that time, you did some voice work on Dungeons and Dragons. Tell us a little bit about that.
I couldn't hear. All of a sudden, you started sounding. Could somebody tell me?
Right around that
David
time.
Just said, 'cause
Yeah,
I'm
right.
hearing this rolling, weird effect.
Can you not hear David?
Can you hear me
No,
now?
but I can hear you.
Okay. He was asking right about that time you were doing some voice acting in Dungeons and Dragons, Teen
yeah.
Wolf.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. What happened was, during Happy Days, they asked me, Ron, and Henry, if we would do animated show of Happy Days, the Happy Days gang, and I was like, hey, that could be fun, and Ron was willing to do it, and Henry. So I did it, and then a couple of years later, some of the producers that were on that show, or somebody who was connected to it, approached me to do Dungeons and Dragons, and Hank Soroyan, he was like the creator of that show, and I hit it off with Hank, and I did that, and it was a blast. Because they said, you have ability to do the voiceover, a cartoon kind of thing. I said, really? I don't know. I'm just, having fun. And Dungeons and Dragons was a great experience. And I know it's still kind of like this cult show. And then Teen Wolf came up as a result of that, and I enjoyed that as well. I haven't done a cartoon since, but
With the voice acting from Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, there have been fans for years begging for the action figures.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I was hoping you had some insight on that. No?
No, not really. I mean, I get a little sense that there's this real fan base out there for that show, but I probably don't know the extent of it by any means.
Huge.
That's great.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, now you sound. I hear you fine now, David.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you got from, you did Happy Days in the iconic show, And then you get involved with Star Trek Voyager.
Oh,
Great role.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was years later. I just kept plugging away because it was, I couldn't get the auditions for a while for some of the kinds of more serious roles or just, there were offers right after I left the show for comedies, but I wasn't interested. And so it took a while, but I held out. And, then I did some of the guest stars roles on some of the shows at the time because I felt like it was important just to, even though it wasn't what I was really looking to do, but shows like Murder, She Wrote or Love Boat, and then I got the Chips episode, which was fun, but then I kept, and then I started doing theater, and I was doing plays around town, directing plays and acting in plays in LA, and then I got an audition for the Star Trek Voyager, it was a two-parter, two-part episode. So I had to go in and audition for that. Yeah, there I am as Dr. Caden. And so that was cool. I got the part, and I was a Star Trek fan growing up, with the original show in the 60s. So it was a big kick for me to get to do that. It was like a little surreal.
Not what many people know about you is that you are also an accomplished musician. I think you had a top 100 hit in your back in the day.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about, and I know to this day that you perform. Tell us a little bit about your musical career.
Oh, I wish you had a shot of my new CD, which, well, it's not new. It's about 2-3 years, but it's the music that I really always loved, which I alluded to earlier. I did that album that you just showed in the mid 70s because somehow I met a producer who knew that I, had sung when I was younger, and because of the success of the show, he thought, well, we could capitalize on that. But they didn't want me to do the kind of music that I love, which was more of the jazz standards, the Great American Songbook, but with a real jazz slant, and blues and big band and swing. That was like considered your grandparents' music in the 70s and early 80s. So I said, okay, well, so I did more of a pop rock kind of album. And but it was a great experience. I learned, it was the first time being in the studio for that. So I learned a lot. And there's some good stuff on there. Not my favorite, but then about 6 years ago, I said to myself, the music that I've always loved, that I was singing when I was 15 in nightclubs, one summer, and the music that I've loved my whole life, I said, one of these days I'm going to do it again. And it hit me that if I'm ever going to do it, I better start about 6 years ago. And I put together, I got a musical director, and we put together a show and found the musicians in LA, and I found a manager, and I started doing jazz clubs in LA. And then it turned into that I got some gigs in New York doing some cool jazz clubs. And then it just kept going, and I was doing a lot of that and some theaters. And then I got to do this album, CD called Mostly Swinging, with this great big band of some of the top LA studio jazz guys in town. It is a smoking big band, and it's called Mostly Swinging, and it swings. And I got to do all those great songs. So people should check it out. It's on iTunes, Amazon, all that. So yeah, and then I'm in the middle of another CD with a producer in Nashville, but we had to stop when COVID hit. So once we can get back in the studio, we're going to finish that one too.
A mutual friend of ours, a Mr. Rob Lowe, put me onto your last CD, and when I tell you that was wonderful work.
Well, thanks. And Rob was very influential because he was managing me at that time, early on, and he was the one who introduced me to the musician producer who wound up producing that CD. So I owe a lot to Rob, and and I just talked to him the other day. We're still, hopefully going to be doing a lot of stuff together.
No, he's a great guy. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Glee.
Oh yeah, Glee. So again, it was during that time where I was still. It was a little later, so I had done a bunch of other independent films since the ones we talked about, and but I got the call from my agent, that they're looking for an actor, and I had to audition where the character was a redhead, and he and his wife, and they were the parents to one of the regulars in the show, Jenna Mays, who played Emma, and she was the guidance counselor in the show, and she was a ginger, so we were her parents. But I get accused of being a ginger supremacist, and it was a very funny concept. But I had to go in and audition for it, and then I get a call from my agent a few days later that they love your audition. And the director, they want you, but they have to wait till they get the okay from Ryan Murphy, who's the exec producer of the show. So then I had to wait over the weekend, and then on Monday they said, okay, you're doing it. And it was like, oh, cool. And I really, really enjoyed doing that show because the cast was great. Everyone I worked with was great to work with. And the crew, it was just so, it reminded me of our show when we were such a well-oiled machine, and that's the way they were. And they were really on top of the game. I was very impressed with that whole production.
Now, this show, this whole network, caters to independent artists and directors, producers, and filmmakers. We have virtually had almost everyone that you could think of come through on either George's show or mine. As somebody who's achieved iconic legendary status, what piece of information can you share with somebody who is trying to further themselves in an artistic endeavor, be it directing, producing, acting, any kind of wisdom that you could lay on us?
No pressure.
Become a plumber. No.
I don't know, David, you tell me. The only advice that I could give is, there's perseverance is one of the main attributes you're going to need is perseverance. But what I would usually, when people ask me that, I say, unless this is something that you want to do with your heart and soul, and it's like the only thing you can think of that you want to do, and you can't think of doing anything else, and you have to do it, then pursue it, and go study and work, meet other people and network and get into that environment, starting out by studying. Otherwise, if you don't have that kind of, where it's that or nothing, if you don't have that, then I usually tell people don't bother, because it could be it's so competitive and could be cruel and unfair, and it'll drive you crazy. So, but if you have that kind of passion that you have to do it, then go all out, full board on it.
That's absolutely wonderful advice. And also to have a thick skin is probably a great thing to have.
Yeah. When I was younger, I had a thicker skin. I think it's thinned out a bit.
Do you gentlemen have any other questions for Mr. Most?
But you know what I would tell everyone who's watching, on Amazon Prime, the last 2 movies I did are on there. One is called MBF. M is in Mary, B is in boy, F is in friend. MBF, aka Man's Best Friend. It's a pretty powerful film about a wounded vet coming back from Afghanistan. I play his defense attorney, so I don't come in till about halfway through. But then I'm in it, and a very different kind of scenes than people and character that people would think of me. So I think I would encourage people, check that out, MBF on Amazon Prime. And then even more recently, one that just came out a few months ago is called Lost Heart. And it's a beautiful film, also by the same production company, based out of Michigan. And I play a small town, the local pastor of the town. And it's a very different role also. So check it out, Lost Heart and MBF on Amazon Prime.
You know, I can't let him go without discussing this picture, and I brought it up earlier in pre-show, and I'm going to bring it up right now, because people just need to know.
Right. Yes, they need to know that. Look at that. Who is that guy?
It's Gene Simmons' younger brother.
Yeah, talk about playing a different role. That was different, but I had a great time. That was me doing an episode of Chips, playing the role of Moloch, this sort of Satan worshiping, band, a la Kiss in some respects. Not the Satan worshiping part, but the visual aspect, I guess. But yeah, I loved it. I had a great time because look what I got to do. I got to breathe fire. I got to play this, this outrageous rock star. I had a blast doing that. And people probably didn't even know it was me. Although there was a scene where you saw me like out of makeup or half in makeup, half out, and then you figured out who I was. So that was kind of cool.
Well, you made it in life if you ended up on this show.
Yes, the Family Guy. That was outrageous. Yeah, that was great. But you got too bad you didn't play the video because they got that great song, that from Brigade. It was inspired by. Yeah, that was a trip doing that with Seth MacFarlane. I got to, he got to direct me in that.
I actually think that Chips episode was actually a Halloween special, as I recall.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah. And then I just saw this year, they ranked it, I don't know who ranks, the best Hollywood, Halloween TV shows, specials, whatever. And that was up there, ranked up there pretty good. So.
Do you remember when TV was cool and they would do Halloween specials and Christmas specials?
Yeah.
When episodic television shows actually used to do that. They don't seem to do that anymore.
I don't know. I don't watch too much episodic TV, so I don't know. I would think, why not? They don't do that, huh?
No, it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, that was the day they had the Battle of the Network Stars and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did one of those. I think I did.
Did you? That's funny.
But I do have a challenge for cosplayers out there. Anyone who cosplays as him, send us a picture. We'll get you on the show.
Cool.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, David.
No, absolutely. So, Mr. Most, in closing, where can people who want to follow you follow you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Don Most is my personal page, and then I have a music page under Don Most. And on Twitter, it's at _most. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
At _most. And then Instagram. Oh gosh.
I think it's Don Most 1 or
That's
something
it.
like that.
You got it. Don Most 1. Thank you.
And where can they find your music, Don?
Yeah. So D Most, Mostly Swinging, is on iTunes and Amazon, maybe other platforms, but those for sure. And then if you want to see some video from some of the live concerts, I have some video posted up on YouTube as well. So people, if they put in Don or Donnie Most singing, you'll see a bunch of different videos from some of the live performances.
And do you have any upcoming events that you want to plug?
No, I wish, I don't. I did a short film but I'm not allowed to talk about that. that's coming out soon.
Too early.
Yeah, no, lost. Like I said, right now with COVID, there's not much going on, but the film Lost Heart is out on Amazon Prime and MBF. Well, I would say for people to check those out. And you could also go on YouTube and look at Viral Vignettes. Viral Vignettes. It was a little web series I did where I acted in 2 of them and I directed 2 of them. There's 11 episodes, little 10-minute episodes about people right now, who are communicating locked down. So it's really fun. They're very funny. Check it out. I did 2 of them. I did one with Robert Wool and one with Gail O'Grady. And then I directed another one with Linda Pearl and Lydia Cornell. And there's some other great people in that series. So check it out on YouTube. Viral Vignettes.
Nice. Ken is saying you have Puckheads coming out. Keith is giving you a thumbs up. You are awesome.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, Puckheads. I hope that, I don't know what's going on with that. That was about a minor league hockey team, and it was fun. I played the owner of the team. So I'm hoping to see that out there one of these days. I don't know what's going on with it. We'll see.
With that being said, Don, I want to welcome you to the Indie Brigade family. Every Halloween and Christmas and maybe this Easter, we have a show for whatever the said holiday is, usually a day or 2 before. And we have a ton of celebrities on screen at once, and we all tell stories and have a good time. So hopefully you will join us again on an Indie Brigade episode.
Okay, that sounds like fun. Sure.
No, you'll definitely laugh at us.
We're with you.
Or with us.
Right.
With that being said, it was an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on our show tonight, Mr. Most.
Oh,
thank you for being so kind, and thank you for being so wonderful and witty and charming. And that's all I got. I don't know if you guys have anything you would like to say to Mr. Most before we let him go for the evening, because he suffered enough.
Well, I'll say before Scott gets to him, I just got to say we're not worthy, and thank you very much.
Don't be silly. Yes, you are. Well, nice meeting you, Joe and Scott and David. And let's do it again sometime. And stay safe and onward. Here we go.
Be well, and again, thank you for a lifetime of great memories and for just being a great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Don Most.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Most.
Thank you, Don.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut him off. He was saying have a good night. Sorry.
We cut you off.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.
This program. How amazing was that? Holy crap.
That was like unbelievable.
What
Wow.
an inspiration as an actor to persevere. And I thought when he was talking about getting into the voice work, that's one way for an actor who becomes so identified with a role to break that. At first, if you go in to do voices, there's no visual. So they don't see Ralph Malph. They just hear a great actor speaking. And that's actually a really great thing for somebody who might be in the predicament of, it's a good predicament to be in when you become so identified with a role that it's hard for people to see you as anything else. You do voice work and all of a sudden, visually, you're anonymous.
I mean, granted, mind you, I was in 1985. I was 9 years old when these animated shows came out. I was an avid Happy Days fan. Had no clue he did those voices until recently, and it was just mind blown. Now that I look back on it and hear it, it's like, oh yeah.
And he did one of these web vignettes with somebody who's been on this show who I love, Robert Wool.
Yep.
You got to check that out.
No, I mean, he couldn't have been a kinder, more generous gentleman. He couldn't have been more knowledgeable. And for somebody who is literally one of the most beloved, iconic... Ralph Malph really, I mean, we throw that term around a lot because there are a lot of iconic parts, but he's in the pantheon of Happy Days, the greatest shows ever.
Right. That's one thing I wanted to ask him about that I didn't. Damn
What was
it.
that?
Working with Pat Morita.
Oh, okay. You know what? Don seems like a lovely human being, and somewhere down the road we will have Don on for part 2 because his career is so amazing that we could only barely scratch the surface. With that being said, he's just an unbelievable guy. Mr. Schaffo, is there anything you would like to discuss in parting?
Not particularly. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight and supporting all that we do here and supporting me. You guys are the best. That was a very inspirational segment, Dave. Thank you for having Don on and having me on. I really take a lot away from these people who have achieved and continue to persevere. Tim Busfield is very similar, where several iconic roles, but they keep reinventing themselves. That's really inspirational for me.
Yeah, I mean, just since we started this show not 10 months ago, I mean, John McNaughton, we were picking John McNaughton's brain, and Tim Busfield, and Sam Jones, and Bill Sadler, and
Bill Sadler story.
Oh my God! And there's just so many more things so many wonderful things to come. So again, Uncle Scott, thank you for being a dear friend. Thank you for popping on tonight. And if I chewed Don's ear off and didn't let you get your question in, I apologize. I was just a giddy schoolboy.
No, I was good. He covered a lot of things I was going to get to anyway.
Thank you, Keith. All right, Uncle Scott, it was good seeing you.
Good night, guys.
See you next time.
Till next Friday.
Thanks, Scott. Love Scott.
All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on the end of the night. You and George will be back next Friday, and the end of the night will be back next Friday. So everything will be up and running like it's a well-oiled machine. If you get a chance, please. Thank you, Ed. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. It was an absolute pleasure and an honor to speak to Mr. Most tonight on the show. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. JD, I hope you're well. It was just a thrilling evening. If you get a chance, please check out my new film, Wit's End, which is out on every major streaming platform: Vudu, Hulu, Zudu, Poo, whatever the hell you watch movies on, Amazon. Uncle Scott and I and the great Brian O'Halloran is just a fun, heartfelt film that we made. Oh, thank you, Ken. I'm glad you liked it. Or I don't know if you liked it. You may be saying, yes, this is the first time I watched Dave and he really sucks ass. But that's a possibility too. You can also, if you get a chance, check out my film, Mr. Hush. I'm doing my whoring right now because, I don't know.
Well, I just cover your face with the posters.
You're doing society a favor.
Oh, wait, Mr. Hush and Mr. Hush what?
Mr. Hush Legacy. There you go, with the insane Edward Etienne. The Blu-ray available for Wit's End. It's going to come out in the second week of February. Jeff, thank you for asking. With that being said, until next Friday, everybody hang in there. Be kind to each other. We're going to have a great show, and we can't wait to see. Is there anything you would like to say to everybody before we sign off, Joe?
No, I'm invisible right now. You do your thing.
Okay.
Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
That's a lie. I have to say thank you to David for such a wonderful show again, and all the past shows. Thank you for Scott Schiaffo from Clerks, and so many joining us on a weekly basis. Holy crap, that's amazing.
You know, it's funny. We're very blessed, Joe, that we get a lot of people who have done some amazing things, and we're also introducing to the world to a lot of people who are about to do some amazing things. So it's a wonderful mix of people to getting to know new people, and for people to getting to invest themselves in icons like Don Most. I mean, we just spent the last hour talking to Ralph Malph, man. I mean, how awesome is that?
And there is no place I'd rather be on a Friday night, ladies and gentlemen. Mark my words.
Yes, and look in the upcoming weeks where we might, the Happy Days might be joining us again. So these happy days are yours and mine, my friend.
Say that again, please.
These happy days are yours and mine. So look for an upcoming episode at the end of the night where maybe, just maybe, another Happy Days alumnus stops in and shares some wonderful information with us about the show and about other wonderful things that the individual's up to. So you never know who's going to wind up on this show. That's the great thing about it. The only thing that sucks about it is that I keep showing up. I apologize to everybody for that.
Close her out.
Everybody, be well, be kind. I don't even remember my damn line from It's a Wonderful Life. I'm becoming old and feeble. Does anybody could put that in the comments for me, like really quickly, so that I don't look like a buffoon?
Happy days are a good time. Tease.
Yeah.
Libby loves you. You were great. Scott with a blank.
Yeah,
I don't know. That could be expletives.
That's what he thinks of me. He's just like, I can't even say. Okay. No man is a failure who has friends. Everybody be well and be safe. See you next Friday.